Today with Sean O'Rourke.
Dublin's accommodation crisis is not just about spiralling rents and homelessness. The lack of office space is posing a threat to Ireland's ability to attract business to the capital, with obvious knock-on effects for the economy. I'm joined now in studio by Ronan Corbett, Head of Business Space with estate agent Sherry FitzGerald. Also, here is David Duffy, Senior Research Officer with the Economic and Social Research Institute. I suppose before we start, this issue has been a talking point at this week's Web Summit. We can hear now from Stuart Butterfield, founder of the multi-billion euro office messaging app, Slack, which is planning to expand its Dublin office. He spoke to RTE News at the Web Summit.
Well, right now we're actually constrained by physical space, and it's the property market is definitely heating up here. It's very competitive for leases, so as soon as we can find a bigger office, we will be expanding.
That's Stuart Butterfield there. David Duffy, how typical is that difficulty? You've been examining this in some detail.
Yes, I did some work on this with Hannah Dwyer from JLL, and what we found was that initially when multinationals come to Ireland, they actually, particularly in the office side, look for a relatively small amount of space. But what we're seeing now is the availability of accommodation for them to expand into has become more constrained because there hasn't been much building and construction in Dublin over the past number of years as a result of the crash.
I suppose just during the years of the crash and the recession that followed, there was probably any amount of office space to be had.
Yes, I mean, I suppose one of the plus sides to the downturn was that increased availability and brought rents down, which aided the competitiveness of Dublin as a location for investment.
What is the vacancy rate like at the present time?
The vacancy rate has come down quite a bit. The data that we used up till the end of the second quarter showed a vacancy rate of about 8.5%, but a lower vacancy rate in Dublin City, in Dublin City Centre, in the kind of the core business district. That was down at about 5%, and in Dublin 2 then even lower, down at around 3.5%.
Ronan Corbett, have things got much more difficult? It would appear they have for people who want to expand but also to establish themselves here.
Yes, absolutely. It has got more difficult. As David alluded to earlier on, when companies first came to Ireland, some of these multinationals like Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, they came at a time when office space was more plentiful, lease breaks were easier to get. As the vacancy rate has shrunk, it's more difficult for these people to expand, to find new space. So rents, as a consequence, have risen, but also lease flexibility has eroded too. Lots of these companies, in this industry, in the tech industry, want flexible leases. You've
dealt with a lot of the big international companies that have been coming here, and they've been growing at a huge pace and speed. What kind of notice do you get, we'll say, if a company wants to go maybe from, 50 to 500, let's say, employees to be accommodated?
Well, in the traditional sense, and typically professional service companies in the indigenous economy, lawyers, accountants, so on, they go on a 5-year model, and leases typically go on 5-year cycles, break options, rent reviews, and lease expiries. The new multinationals that are here in the tech side, they want space a lot quicker, and we've experienced instances where we get a call in January from a multinational saying we want 100,000 square feet in July, and the system here isn't built to cater for that level of expansion and that speed.
How many people could be catered for in a space 100,000 square feet?
Approximately 1,000 people, give or take, depending on the density.
And you've got to find that in 6 months. I mean, what are your options?
Very limited. I mean, at the moment, there's no building over 100,000 square feet in Dublin today.
How long? Is there anything being built?
Yes. There's about 1.8 million square feet under construction today. Now, the interesting point is 55% of that is already pre-let as of now. The market can absorb or needs an additional amount of space of about 800,000 square feet per year. So if you look at those numbers, if we're building 1.8 million square feet, 55% of it's already pre-let. We're only building just about to meet demand. So we need to build more space and more space quickly. Now, there are signs of that happening, of more space on top of this 1.8 million being built. Companies like Hibernia REIT, Bennett Oaktree, Green REIT are building space, which, they have to be commended for doing that.
And David Duffy, is there any evidence that we have actually lost jobs coming from this country, that investors or companies wanting to expand have gone elsewhere because we simply couldn't find the room for them.
Well, I haven't heard of those instances, but I think what our research shows is that it is becoming more of a constraint. Either to that lack of availability the options are more limited for companies looking to come here, and for those looking to expand, as Ronan has said, the availability or just whether there is a property or not, that there aren't very big properties. And for expansion, the options are limited.
And what about the increases? What has happened there? Has it mirrored the increases? I think of 35% to rent accommodation to live in?
Yeah, I mean, in the office sector, rents have risen dramatically in the last 2 years. We are seeing rents starting to ease off somewhat.
What's dramatically now? What does that mean?
Well,
by how much?
40%.
Really, as much as that?
Yeah, for Grade A space in prime locations last year. Now, it's a little bit more subdued, in the suburbs and in peripheral areas. I think the point to make is, whilst there is a dearth of space available, it's in the Grade A sector. We do still have 4.8 million square feet of other types of space available in the market, around Dublin. But what we don't have, and what we're not building enough of, is large floor plates, buildings with large floor plates. And that's what these multinationals really want.
Sorry, you better explain what a large floor plate is.
A large floor plate is a floor of typically 20,000 square foot plus. Most buildings in the Dublin market would be, say, have floor plates of 10, 15,000 square feet. These multinationals...
That's just open space?
Yeah, correct. Open space. Most of these companies, the Googles, Facebooks, LinkedIn's, they want big open floors of 25,000 square feet plus in most instances.
But can we find that space maybe in other places? I mean, PayPal, for instance, have gone to Dundalk. I mean, surely there are options there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we've seen a resurgence in places like Sandyford. We're also seeing resurgence in peripheral areas of Dublin, places like Dublin 8, Dublin 7, where space is cheaper, where some of the buildings that are there have bigger floor plates, and the lease flexibility is also there. So I think what we're seeing is a real squeeze in the core Dublin 1, 2, 4 areas, and areas around it, surrounding it, are benefiting from people who don't necessarily want to be there or can't afford to be there.
David, as an economic researcher, would you be concerned when you hear a figure like 40% increase for office space in 2 years that the word bubble surely follows?
Well, whatever about bubble, I think one of the a concern about it would just be competitiveness, that we've attracted foreign direct investment on the back of the economy becoming very competitive. And as that competitiveness is diminished through rising costs, that will impact on our ability to attract that foreign direct investment. So I think looking at how the economy can expand while we maintain our competitiveness is important.
Ronan, what's the ideal mix between the level of building and new build and also the rate of increase for the rents?
It is a tough question. I think looking at the 10-year average, the net take-up of office space is about 900,000 square feet per year. So what that means is we need to be producing 900,000 square feet, the new demand, the growth in the economy. And that's a 10-year average, and that includes the very bad years of 08, 9, 10, 11.
So that's a space for an extra 10,000 workers per year, office space?
Approximately, yeah. In Dublin. That's what we need to do. Now, obviously, we have spikes in that, and the economy is growing quite aggressively at the moment. So, I think next year, we're going to have to build more space than that. But we're not doing that right now. Now, the pipeline of new development, is relatively healthy. There's lots of developers, landlords gearing up and getting planning permissions again and getting focused on building more space. But I do think we're going to have a situation in the next 18 months where there's just going to be a dearth of space. There isn't enough space being built today to be delivered because it takes about 2 years to build a building. And there was a period, was it a 2 year period where there was virtually nothing at all built, David? And then you wonder, well, where is the construction industry going to get the capacity if most of the workers have gone elsewhere?
Well, that is an issue. Yeah, the data that we looked at when we were preparing this note does show that there was nothing built for about 3 years, that there is building taking place at the moment. But I think it's an issue across the construction sector, just the resources, having the resources to be able to deliver in the commercial market, in the residential market. There are capacity constraints within that sector.
And it seems that you're concerned, but you would say, Ronan, finally, no need for panic just yet.
No, I don't think anyone needs panic. We need a controlled supply of new space. I mean, what happened in 2006 and 2007 was a panic, and lots of space was delivered, and it really had a very dampening effect on the market. We don't necessarily need that. We need a controlled delivery of space onto the market over the next 5 years. And if we can do that successfully, we'll be fine. Do
people like you, do you tic-tac to any great extent, say, with groups like the IDA or Enterprise Ireland, to get a sense of what the flow is going to be like, what is going to be needed? Yeah,
we do. We would work closely with the IDA, and again, I would like to congratulate them. They've done a great job over the last number of years in attracting new investment into the country, and again, this year is going to be another bumper year for them. But we, as a cohort in the property industry, we all need to work together to make sure that we don't kill what we've built over the last 25 years, which is a very healthy environment for multinationals to come here, and it's a place where they want to do business and they want to expand. We need to protect that.
And how might it be killed?
Well, not killed necessarily, but if we're not providing the space for them to grow into on the office side, that's going to be an issue for them. They're going to have a look at it and go, well, maybe we can't grow in Dublin. Okay, thank you both for coming in. That's Ronan Corbett, their head of business space with DTZ Sherry FitzGerald. Also here, David Duffy, senior research officer with the Economic and Social Research Institute. If you've got a problem sleeping, you might like to hear very much from our next
.ie/Today with Sean O'Rourke.
Dublin's accommodation crisis is not just about spiralling rents and homelessness.